Jussi Adler Olsen, välkommen till Göteborg.
Tack.
Det är, om jag har förstått saken rätt, så är det första gången du möter svenska läsare i Sverige.
Ja, det är märkvärdigt. Det är det verkligen.
Hur kommer det sig?
Nej, jag vet inte.
Kan det vara förlaget?
Ja, men jag blev ut på bra böcker i Malmö förut.
Ja.
Och det fungerade inte alls. Nej. Så Bonniers, de köpte allt för bra böcker och igen utgav allting. För några få månader sedan, så jag tänker det är därför.
Jag tänker inte liksom presentera Jussi i detalj, utan jag tänkte mig liksom att vårt samtal här ska försöka lösa alla pusselbitar kring hela Jussis liv och hans författarskap, vilket jag inte tvivlar på att du kommer att göra. Och jag hoppas att ni stänger av mobiler och sånt. Men sen så får ni hemskt gärna ställa frågor.
Ni må hemskt gärna telefonera mig.
Efteråt.
No.
Eller en halvtimme in på samtalet. Så här är det. Jussi är aktuell i Sverige med 2 romaner i år. Marco-effekten, 5:e delen om avdelning Q i en deckarserie som publicerades i våras, och i höst så kommer en tidigare roman som du skrev 2001, den kommer vi återkomma till. Alfabetshuset heter den. Och den kom ut i Sverige redan 2001. Men låt oss börja nu med den här kriminalserien.
Thrillerserie. Ja, jag får säga alltid på det. Med kriminalserie.
Att det är thriller eller kriminalroman. Vilken är skillnaden?
Do you know the difference? Well, a crime story to solve a crime, that's it. Lisa Marklund is killing someone and we have to solve it, right? But a thriller, it's about to prevent a crime to happen. At the very end, you know, like Moses, would they come over this? Let's see. This is the real story, the real novels in life. That's the thrillers. That's why I'm writing them. And there you can smash a supertanker. You cannot do that in a crime story. It would be ridiculous.
Men här finns ju i och för sig en liten motsägelse, för att avdelning Q.
Ja, jag vet det. Ja. Jag vet det.
Är en avdelning som ska lösa olösta brott. Och då går det ju inte att preventa. Eller?
Nej.
Hur löser du detta?
Ja, men jag ljuger hela tiden.
Okej, när du började, du har alltså skrivit en mängd romaner. Ja. En mängd, 3-4 romaner i alla fall, innan du började skriva den här kriminalserien.
Ja.
Thrillerserien.
Ja.
Varför gjorde du detta? Varför började du? Varför skapade du den här världen som kanske, den är 5 böcker lång nu och kanske blir 10 böcker lång, eller 12 eller 15?
Vem vet? Det kommer an på läsaren. Nej, jag tänker 10. Det må vara nog. Jag vill gärna skriva något annat också. How to explain this? Well, I was phoned up by a producer in Denmark. He was a producer in the Nordic film industry. And he said to me, please come to me, because you know what? I'm the one who's producing the Beck series. Tjuvarna, my God. And you know, working for the Swedes, that's so extremely boring. I knew that because I was in Bonniers for 5 years as a VD. So he asked me, couldn't you please come to me and then make a series in Denmark, a crime story? And I said to him, well, I'm not at all interested in making police stories, because if you're making police stories, you can only work in a little region and only with specific kind of crimes. And well, I want to be free. I could do like Åke here. I want to be free. Goodbye, Åke. This is going now. So actually, he tempted me because I thought about it. Couldn't you break down, you know, the rules of police stories? Couldn't you break it down like he could make whatever he did? How to solve that? To put him in a cellar, doing only the cold cases. And I hadn't heard about the cold cases before that, I assure you. I didn't know about them. So Karl Mørk, the police officer, sitting down in the cellar, lazy guy, only wants to be sacked, fired, thrown out of the police force. So therefore, he can take his cigarettes and do whatever he likes. And that's the way you can break down the whole symbols and the traditions about the crime stories, anyway in Denmark. So therefore I did it, because the reviewers in Denmark, they were very sad about that in my first standalone thrillers, the free ones, I never had any Danish characters, never any Danish plots. So they were, you know, curious about that. And I said to myself, why don't I make a sort of a crime story where there are no rules and where it's funny, like in Matador. Do you know the Danish series of Matador? Yeah. So I wanted just to make some figures that everyone loved. That could be funny if that could be easy, right?
You know, one of my early favorite writers is Jack Kerouac. He wrote 30 books, and he was talking about his authorship as one complete book, like a legend. And every criminal writer now seems to do the same thing.
Sure.
Is it like that?
I don't know. You know, I had some rules for myself, some dogmas. It's very, you know, I know Lars von Trier. I ought to have some dogma too. And my dogma was that I wanted to make the longest story ever told of crime. And what do I mean by that? I mean, taking in plots and twisting them around each other and having a very, very long story of 4,500 pages, where you can solve it here and there, and in the end, you know everything about the story, the whole story, the 10 books. It's one story.
And develop the people inside.
Develop the characters, develop their stories, take their secrets in. Do you know the stories? Do you know Assad? Do you want to know the secrets? Do you, really?
Yeah. Read the 7th book.
Wait. Well, so revealing the secrets in a long story, that was a goal for me. And then to write any book in the series, and every book different from another. So that was my goal, actually.
Speaking about crime, before we go, innan vi går närmare in på just den här serien som Jussi har gjort. So the Scandinavian crime novel.
Yeah.
We heard of Walker before. We have it in Sweden, and it's different compared to the American scene and the English scene. And did you ever care about that? We have in Sweden, I know in every interview.
Nu kommer min hemlighet.
Ja, vänta lite grann.
Ja, okej.
Avbryt mig inte. Jussi har pratat jättemycket om Sjöwall Wahlöö i olika intervjuer. Och alltså Jussi har full koll på den svenska deckarhistorien, eller kanske den skandinaviska deckarhistorien. Det sociala engagemanget och så. Men gör någonting annat av det, tycker jag.
Ja.
Förklara.
Ja, gärna. Ja, men you know, Sjöwall and Wahlöö, they are the secrets of all the crime writers in Scandinavia now. If I'm being asked in foreign countries, what is it actually about you Scandinavian writers? Normally I'm lying a little, you know. I'm saying, well, when I was a kid, like Sjöwall and Wahlöö and Håkon Nesser and all the other guys, we didn't have anything. We just had the fireplace, and we sat in the long winter times and told each other stories, you know, like in the sagas of Iceland. It's so deep in our veins and blood, so we can't do anything else. That's the secret. When I'm starting lying there, I'm going on and on. For instance, I'm saying, you know, we were the Vikings, and we only killed people for fun and to keep warm. Then they're interested. And then when I have their attention, I am saying to them, the real answer is Sjöwall and Adler. They are the bosses. They taught us how to do it. And I found it very amusing. Gunnar Larsson is one of the funniest characters ever made, in my opinion. He's so, yeah.
But you mean the books, not the TV series?
Well, Mikael Persbrandt is quite funny. Well, he ought to be. He should be, anyway. This is mine who's making all this nonsense now. Sjöwall and Adler, we learned a lot of dialogue from them. We learned to make it short, the stories. We learned to take any topics in the stories as well. So I'm very grateful to them, and I said that directly to my Sjöwall. She's living in Copenhagen. What they meant for me, really. But to make it a little funnier, that's very important, because my stories, they are very, very dark in so many aspects. So
we'll come to that. It was a gap between Sjöwall and I think Henning Mankell was the first one.
He's a naughty guy, he's so sour.
Yeah.
Yes, he's so dark and grey in so many ways, living in Africa, far away. His own mistake, his own fault.
Håkan Nesser and Lisa Marklund, all these.
Yeah, Lisa, she's not indifferent anyway. No, to be honest, I never read them. Only Sjöwall and Adler. And I'm never reading thriller and crime stories anymore. Since the last 10 years, I haven't read any at all. I'm reading something different, funny stuff like the Norwegian Erlend Loe or something like that. Or even Søren. I mean, this brings me so much, but I would like to read them. So when I'm retired, I'm sitting there, in my bed. Yeah.
Most of the crime writers, even in Sweden, are in my opinion, crap. But there are 5 or 6, maybe, really, really good ones. And in Scandinavia, then UK, and from Norway, then Jon Nesbø.
Yeah.
Good writers.
Yeah.
And that's
but he's a lousy guitarist, I must say. He's very lousy.
Then what inspires you in reading or listening to music or?
What inspires me is like you, like anything, but I'm reading the medias, the journalists' work, like they have to research it, and to a certain point they can write about a topic, but from there on, it's fiction. Then I'm taking over. But between the lines, in normal and standard journalism, there are a lot of answers, a lot of questions never being answered. And I'm searching for that. That's my biggest inspiration, to be true. Then movies as well. I have seen Lisa Marklund in movies. They were rotten, I must say. But I saw a lot of good ones anyway. And I'm very much inspired, like sitting 20 minutes looking upon this movie and then forgetting all about it. And suddenly I'm sitting writing. But I was an editor before. I had a publishing house myself before, and I love bad stuff because it inspires me so tremendously. How to make this good could be funny. So that inspires me. Then you noticed the music side of mine. Well, music is so important for me, but not inspired by the music, but by the standards of the music. Because I'm always having headphones on when I'm writing. So I can write anywhere. I don't, but I can. Having the music in my ears doesn't mean that I want to be inspired by the tone and atmosphere of the music, but to listen to good musicians and fine composers and to try to come up to the certain level where they are. That's an inspiration for me.
Det finns, nu tar jag det på svenska. Det finns, ni som har läst Jussis böcker kanske förstår vad jag menar med att det finns en Köpenhamn noir som är, alltså det finns andra danska deckarförfattare, men inte som har lyckats skapa just den här noir-känslan. Men sen så finns det någonting som skiljer dig från många andra, jag skulle vilja säga alla skandinaviska deckarförfattare. Och det är den här känslan av humor som finns. Och då menar jag relationerna mellan de tre huvudpersonerna. Alltså nu blir det lite inside talk här. Karl Mörk, Assad och Rose. Och där jag kan känna att du måste ha haft fruktansvärt roligt.
Ja.
Eller har
Ja, nej, jag tycker Assad han är fallit lite av på det.
Har han gjort det?
Ja, det är det sista. Ja. Kamelvitsen är inte bra.
Inte?
Nej, det syns inte jag. Nej. Han måste skärpa sig. Ja, humor. Yes, it's very important for me, but it's the contrasts between the darkness and the funny sides.
Jag skulle ju säga det också, att det finns en skarp linje dragen mellan det som händer nere i källaren.
Ja, absolut.
På avdelning Q och det som händer utanför.
Ja.
Som är ja.
Men jag kan förklara det ved att fortælle, hvordan jag blev inspireret till Assad. Alltså, jag telefonerade till en kompis, min översättare till amerikansk. Han bor på Samsø, det är en ö mitt i Danmark. Och jag sa till honom, hej du Stig, vet du vad? Jag saknar dig väldigt mycket. Och jag tänker väldigt ofta på dig. Han säger till mig, vet du vad? What a coincidence. I'm also always thinking about me. Så jag tänkte, okej, vi tar den sättningen och så fyller vi på en mustasch, så har vi Assad. Så jag tänker alltid på den sättningen. Och så fortsätter det han på det sättet här. Jag frågade honom, hur mår du? Har du det bra? Ja, i och för sig. Men det tänker jag väl kan gå över. Så det är Assad. Och om du använder honom som katalysator för allt det som Karl inte mår eller vill. Alltså till exempelvis, I tell it in English. I was a heavy smoker before. And I haven't been smoking for 21 years or something like that. And I'm longing for that every day. Even now. It will never disappear. That's okay. I will not do it. I promise you, you're sitting there, you know, I can see you. But Karl, I allow him to smoke, even though he can't do it in the police yard. So he's sitting there. And then Assad is coming in and saying, oh Rose, you can't do that. I love that. I love to allow him and not. And I allow him to be lazy because I'm a very lazy guy, really. But I'm ashamed of it. I hate myself being lazy, so I'm working like hell all the time, not only by being an author, but with a lot of other stuff. And he's very lazy, Karl, to a certain point, until they come and catalyze him and try to make him the police officer he once was. So.
Because it's a very strange friendship.
Yes.
These two,
Yes.
these three together. De här tre, ni som har läst böckerna känner ju till det. Ni som inte har gjort det ska veta att Karl Mörk har en mörk historia med ett skjutfall bakom sig med en förlamad poliskommissarie som ligger hemma hos honom förlamad. Där sonen är med och det är någon assistent eller styvson.
Very strange.
It's very, very strange.
Yeah. Well,
Var kommer det ifrån?
Yeah, but normally when you see, I saw a lot of movies. I'm educated in movies. So I saw perhaps 15,000 movies in my life, I'm sure I did. And you see very often a sidekick. You have the main character and then the sidekick. And within a certain amount of periods in the series, it will be stereotypically. And it's not funny anymore. Therefore, I introduced the secrets. The secrets of Assad and Karl means that they are not only one person, they are a lot of persons. Therefore, the interaction between them can be almost endless, but not more than almost. So therefore, I introduced the third character, that's Rose. This is anarchy. This is chaos. And having her and those two persons combined, you can have any interaction. I can do whatever I like. And that's great. That's what I wanted, really.
And she's really great. We would like to see more of her. Really.
It's coming up. It's coming up. I mean, in this one I'm writing now, she's taking completely over. Yeah. The first 40 pages anyway. But she is strange. You must know I was brought up in mental hospitals.
I'm coming to that.
Oh.
Ursäkta mig.
Ja, sure.
Jag måste liksom tillägga det här liksom att Jussis böcker, det är inte så att man skrattar ihjäl sig. Det är vissa delar av romanerna, framförallt som utspelar sig nere i källaren, som är helt fantastiskt roliga. Och så är det relationen mellan de här tre. Och sen så finns det en skarp linje between violence and humor. And the violence is really rough and it's...
Not in my books. It's not existing. It's in your heads. Not in mine. I'm not giving you details, but you're making them up.
Det där kan vi ta med en nypa salt, tycker jag. Om man är en van läsare så vet man att, eller då känner man att det är väldigt våldsamt. It's between the lines,
yeah.
Of course. And what happens to these three persons and with their cases is the thing about memories.
Yeah.
They have to deal with their own memories.
Yeah. But I'm not giving them away to you.
No. But then the memories of the cases, because it's det är alltså avdelningen för olösta fall. Yeah. It's dark memories in the Danish history.
Oh yeah.
Just talking about the crime novels now.
Mm.
And that's the main ingredient in your novels.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, but you know, in Denmark we have the big gap. I know you have it too in Sweden now, but the big gap of differences politically. And I learned from my childhood that if you disagree with a person, never use your finger. No one listens. You know that with your children. You can't do that and they don't listen. You can't do that. That's another case. So I'm never pointing fingers at persons. But over the gap of differences, arguments, I'm building a bridge of laughter. And that's very Danish. To laugh of yourself and for the others too. That's very Danish. I have a little thing about that, you know, because the Swedes, you are quite formal, aren't you? When you're working. But you're not inside. Then you're funny. I mean, you saw Åke, he was quite funny though. You're sort of Danes in disguise. Thank you for that. That's why I can touch you with the cue. I can't remember your question. It was about political views and so forth.
Let's talk about your the latest novel in the Q department. Marco-effekten in Swedish, in Danish. Marco-effekt.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yes.
Den beskriver problem som vi ser väldigt, väldigt tydligt och som har kommit ganska snabbt även i den här staden, i Göteborg. Modernt slaveri, tiggeri och så. How come you did?
How come I did that? Well, I lived for a certain period in the Netherlands, and it was in the 80s, and I admired them so much because 15 million people in a country smaller than Denmark, many of them immigrants. How could they deal with that? And I could see the hierarchy in the Netherlands very clearly. On the very bottom, you had the ones coming from the Moluccan area, because they have made some terror actions. And we have it as well in Denmark. I think it's very, very interesting. No one is ever talking about it. But we have on the top in Denmark the Vietnamese. They are so sweet. They are so small. They make good food. So they integrate good. On the bottom in Denmark, we have the ones coming from Somalia. We don't understand them and they don't understand us. But I learned from the Netherlands and also in Denmark. And underneath, we have another population, and it's always about the gypsies, the Romas. They are at the bottom. They are good in music, we know that, but they are very good in stealing, we know that too. And it could be funny for me to make up a person that was so low in the system that he thought he was a gypsy, but he wasn't even that. He hadn't even that identity. And then you're deep down under. And it could be funny to see how he looked upon the Danes and how the Danes looked upon him, especially Karl Mørk. And using this kid and this bride, you know, that was extremely funny. But as I told you before, I'm not reading the thriller and crime writers because I'm so afraid of being infuriated. It's enough that I'm infuriated by Sjöwall and Bargen, and I admit that. But I don't want to be infuriated by Lisa Marklund and Camilla Läckberg. I don't want to be. But my heroes in life, they were like John Steinbeck. I didn't like Hemingway. I loved John Steinbeck. He was so funny, he was so well written, and lots of sorrows and everything combined, John Steinbeck. But overall, I had Charles Dickens. I love still Charles Dickens. How to make those social novels that early in life, I can't understand, but he did anyway. And then, yeah, they told me in the reviews, the Marco effect. This is Oliver Twist. Thank you, this is my favorite novel. There you go. I mean, I'm sure I was infuriated by that, making this. But I never thought about it when I wrote it, I can assure you.
Jag tänker, om jag får ta en liten grej på svenska här, så apropå Marco-effekten, som drabbade mig väldigt hårt faktiskt, som är väldigt, väldigt fin skildring av, stark skildring ska jag säga, av de här, många av de här tiggarna som vi även ser i Göteborg, som plötsligt dyker upp överallt. Och det här är ett problem som finns överallt. Jag var ihop med en tjej som var adopterad från Sydkorea under en period. Hon var 1,50 lång och så sa hon så här: nej, men de kommer att betrakta dig som min pappa. Och då har vi ju ett problem, eller hur?
Det tycker jag inte.
Och du tycker inte det.
Ja,
men det finns ett problem.
Menar
jag att det...
Jag kan fortælle dig, det var så kul. Jag var i Oslo. Och i Oslo, där hade man ett problem med romer. Och man spurgte mig hela tiden, vad ska vi göra av det? Vad gör ni i Köpenhamn? Ja, det vet inte jag. Men I can remember 3 years ago there was a snowstorm. And the snowstorm, it closed down the airport of London. 2.5 centimeters of snow stopped the traffic in Europe. Can't we laugh from that in Denmark, and especially Sweden? I mean, take a meter of snow and who cares? But in London, 2.5 centimeters. And I told the Norwegians, and you only have 2.5 problems with the gypsies. So deal with that and don't ask me.
Then Norway has a problem.
Yeah.
10 problems maybe.
It's Norway.
It's En tredje grej som finns i Jussis böcker, as you said in an interview with the New Standard Statesman, the misuse of power.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing in your novels.
That's the main subject from my life. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not inte bara i kriminalromanerna, utan även i de andra romanerna så handlar det om maktmissbruk, korruption. Och det skrivs om det i stort sett alla kriminalromaner. Men ur min synvinkel så gör just detta på ett helt annat sätt. För att det finns the misuse of power everywhere.
Mm.
And you do it in a very strong way, I think.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, you see, now we come back to the mental hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
Can we do that?
Maybe.
No, okay, we take that later. Anyway, I learned that misuse of power is the most problematic thing you can ever take on. I wasn't afraid of the patients at all. I lived there all my childhood. We're talking about it later on. I was afraid of the doctors. The doctors. They had the injection things and the rubber gloves. And they could push the buttons when they made the shock treatments, right? I was afraid of them when I was a kid, and you should be in the 50s, all right? So misuse of power, you see it everywhere. Misuse of power amongst friends, in families, colleagues. I like power. Power is good. Good power is good, that is. But how often do we see it? I mean, how many Mandelas do we have that use this power so well and so fine? So I think it's a goal and an aim for me to take forward the misuses of power, like in Marco effect, like in German 64. So the most important thing in life, in my opinion, for a human being is empathy. To feel something for your next of kin. And I learned that in my childhood. To feel for them, no one cared about. You should see my friends, they are quite crazy. I like crazy people. I learn a lot from them.
Då ska vi ta detta nu då. Det är så att Jussi växte upp på mentalsjukhus eftersom hans pappa var doktor.
Ja, det får vi säga.
Ja. Det är precis som den svenska poeten Gunnar Harding som växte upp på Beckomberga faktiskt. Som också liksom har transkriberat sina erfarenheter från den tiden i sin litteratur. And how did that affect you? We will talk about you already mentioned it,
yeah.
But we will talk about the Alphabet House later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did it affect me? You know, a mental hospital is a closed system. They can't run like that, the insane patients. So therefore it's being placed in the outskirts. Always very, very beautiful places with forests, you know, and fjords and so forth. So I was brought up in 5 different mental hospitals, one more beautiful than the other placed, I mean. And there, at the hospital, we lived, the families of the doctors and the one who took care of the patients. And I had friends there, you know, 150 friends in my own age. You know, we could make a football team in the hospital that was better than the football team in the city. Because we knew each other, we could beat them all, right? It was so funny. We made carnivals, we made anything and everything with the patients. Every week we saw a movie with the patients. Sometimes they were a little odd, you know. The crime stories from England especially, it aroused the patients a little bit. But we were together. And we, you know, we played the billiard and so forth. We had competitions with them. We danced with them, even though we were kids. Because we kids, and it was my father that was a head doctor, we were like the keyhole to reality. for the insane people.
Were you ever afraid?
Yeah, of the doctors. You know, there's one person in the alphabet, you said, which is real, and he's the one who's called Kröner in the story. He was 2 meters high, and he was pockmarked, you know, and he was a captain from a ship. And I was so impressed of him because he killed a man with one stroke. That's great, fantastic. He was a captain of a ship, and the guy was naughty, and he blew him out to nothing with one blow. And he was my bodyguard. So when I was 7 years old, I went along with this guy, you know, and knew no one is touching me. So that was one thing. But another thing was that we learned how to deal with the patients. And we followed them, you know, from coming in and until they died, many of them. My father, he was a specialist of old patients especially, so they died. And it was very interesting for me because I was curious for bodies and dead people. So every week, that was Wednesday, there was autopsies of those who died in the week before. And I climbed the roof, and there was, you know, a possibility of seeing what's going on down there. And it was very interesting, I found, to see how a person which I knew from the outside looked in the inside too. That's rough, you mean. But you know, for instance, being brought up in a farm where you slaughter the pigs and the chickens and so forth, and they don't get especially, I mean, hard of that. It didn't harden me at all. And even the shock treatments, which I saw a lot of, because we knew when it happened, and we could lie on our knees, and then we could peep in the window and see the guys we knew, and lie there and being, you know, having a little medicine before that, and then, and being better, most of them, after that, made us comfortable about the treatments. What I didn't like was the doctors with the cold eyes. And there were many of them. And my father, he was so, you know, ashamed of his own colleagues sometimes. That made me make the novel number 4, Journey 64. Yeah.
Your father was a doctor at these hospitals. What about your mother?
My mother, she was even greater. It was so funny because my father and mother lived in the same small town. My father came from a very rich family, and my mother, she came from a very poor. No contact at all. My father, he was the best student in his own school, and they noted that in the school book, the yearbook. From year to year, yeah, but Henry Olsen, that's my father, had the best characters, you know. He was the best student, until my mother came. She was even better, and that interested my father. So he saw her at the main station in this small city. For the very first time, he saw her in person, and he fell in love immediately. And he walked over to her. She knew who he was. He walked over to her and said, "You know what? I just realized that I must ask you, will you be my lover? Will you be my friend of my whole life? And will you marry me?" And then my mother, she reflected, you know, only a few seconds. And she said, "Yes, of course I will." That's the story, you know. And the same way I found my own wife. 42 years I had her now. Anyway, she was clever. She was not sitting down. One day she said to my father, "You know, Henry, I think that people know too little about sex in the world." So they wrote a book like this in 1945, which was published all over the world. And this is the home I was brought up in. Sex all over, you know. Sexual organs all over. 3 elder sisters, which knew a lot. I can recommend anyone to be brought up in a family with 3 elder sisters that can tell you anything about women, and then even to have fathers and mothers like I had. So she was fantastic.
Tell us about a little about your racing from the mental hospitals that upgrowing and then you began.
Du kan säga det i svenska.
Blev förläggare och så. Liksom, vad hände? Liksom vägen in till litteraturen?
Ja, men det är så lång historia.
Okej, men börja.
Okej.
Vill ni höra?
Vägen till att bli författare, är det du menar? Ja, okej.
Innan vi börjar.
Ja, ganska kort. Well, I realized that a friend of mine, he wanted to be in a competition of writing when I was 30 years old. It was a national competition, a freestyle. So when he was there, I wanted to be there as well, and I won the competition of the country. I was number 1. So the next year I tried once more and I won again. And then the next year I tried again, and then there was another guy who fought me. So then I didn't write anymore for many years. I mean, if he's better than I am, then who cares? So it took me many, many years to realize that I would like to be a writer. I had a comic shop. It was very funny because I was studying medicine and later on statistics, and then later on movies in the University of Copenhagen. So my wife, she was in this university and I was here, and in the middle of that we would like to have a flat. And the only flat we could have, that was a shop. And well, I rented the shop, and then we lived there. And after 14 days, the guy who rented the flat out, he came and asked, "Are you not going to sell anything here? Because if you are not..." And then I put a sign in the window, and I wrote, "Well, this shop will be opened the 29th of February between 3 and 4. 1 hour every 4th year." I could manage that. And then he came after 14 days once again, Per. And he said, "You misunderstood. You must sell something every day, even Saturday." And I had some comics. And I thought it would perhaps be a good idea to put the comics in the window, because no one will care for that. No one will buy that. And within 6 months, I had 6 employees. This was a huge success, enormously. I became rich before I was 30 years old. And then I could study, of course, and everyone could do as well. So, and after being a comic dealer and a student for many years, I thought, well, now it's on pure time, when I'm rich, to do something for society. So I was a member of the peace movement in Denmark. And then very, very quickly, because I liked to do my job properly, I was one of the 3 persons who decided everything, actually, in the coordination group. So we were the bosses, and this is from 1980 to 1982, where all the demonstrations against the SS-20 in Germany were so important. Lots of demonstrations, lots of cooperation with Swedes, Germans, everywhere. Many demonstrations in Paris, La Planhammar in Finland, and so forth. Very fantastic time for me. Then after that, my wife, she asked me, "Are you going to do anything you want to do forever, or what? Because I think you manage now." And I said, "Well, maybe it could be nice to compose." I played in a rock band when I was 18 years old, and I liked to be a rock star, I can assure you. To play the guitar and see the girls doing like this. That was great. That's why I'm saying that Joe Nestor is not a good guitarist. One day we have to make a compete with it.
Och sen så kom ju Your First Novel.
Ja.
Jussis första roman menar jag. Alfabetshuset.
Ja. Ja, du har rätt.
Det var första, va?
Det är rätt. Det var faktiskt it was that when I sold the comic shops, I knew that, you're so right, you know the story better than I, that I wanted to try if I could write. And I asked my father, I rented a place in the Netherlands, where I should teach the Netherlands to make Disney stories, because I did that when I had the comic shop. And I asked my father, how do you concentrate really good and make a story? And then he gave me the good advice. If any one of you are going to be a writer and be doing lots of pages every day, first you have to pee. And then sit for hours. That advice I had. I would like to make lyrics like you, Søren, because then I could go pee all the time, you know. One sentence peeing, one sentence more pee. But I have to sit there, you know, for hours and hours and try not to, because my father said that would be a good suggestion. So, yes?
Vi har bara 10 minuter kvar, så jag tänkte faktiskt fråga ifall publiken vill komma in.
No, but I can tell, I wrote a story there. I wrote a story. It was so grim and gruesome because it was all about Cambodia, all about, you know, what's going on in Uganda at that time, in the mid-70s.
Jag skulle vilja prata lite grann mer om Jussis, den boken som kommer nu i höst. Är det okej? Ja. Carl?
Nej, kör.
Ja. Alfabetshuset, som alltså kommer till Sverige 2001.
Ja.
I Danmark vet jag inte.
1997.
1997. Det är, nu kommer den ut i en nyutgåva i Sverige. Nyöversättning. Jag har precis läst manuset som jag fick från Bonniers. Det är en helt fantastisk roman. Som inte alls har med avdelning Q att göra. De romanerna är också fantastiska, men den här är något helt annat. 2 engelska piloter skjuts ner under ett uppdrag i Tyskland under andra världskriget, och under sin flykt från nazisterna så hamnar de på mentalsjukhus. Och det är där vi knyter ihop tråden lite grann. Liksom. Det var det jag skulle komma till.
Tack ska du ha.
Och det finns så väldigt mycket research kring den här romanen som du även har i kriminalromanerna.
Ja.
Men i det här så är det ju extremt. Det är en helt otrolig roman som också knyter ihop alla liksom ingredienserna, minnen, vänskap. Ja. Du får berätta lite grann om det.
Jag har inte betalat Per för säkerhet. Det har jag inte. Nej. Ja, men you know, the first thing about the crime thriller stories is the point of views. That means you can be in the head of one person and not in another. And it's very hard to write like that. One chapter in one head and then another. And you're in the head of a person that speaks German at one chapter, and the other chapter, they don't understand. The guy doesn't understand. They're 2 friends. And the one knows a lot going on in the hospital, and the one doesn't. It's very, very dangerous, you know. So this interaction, when they can't speak to each other for months and months, this is a real thriller. Like, for instance, Mr. Hitchcock introduced us. Suspense, it's called. There where you readers know something that the main character doesn't know. I mean, in one chapter, you know, if I walk out of this door, I will be killed. And the next chapter, I'm going to walk out of the door, and you are saying, don't do that! Please. That's suspense. And this is a suspenseful story about simulants, people that are not really sick in that hospital, trying to survive the war by being in the hospital. One part of the book is about that. And then later on, one is escaping, I can tell you that, trying to find out what happened to the other guy. And this is a thriller of action.
So it's about friendship too.
It's about friendship and you know, to take care of each other, and about deceiving each other. Who is deceiving who? The one running away or the one who didn't go with him? Yes, you're so right. It's not a war story, not at all, actually. Not in my opinion.
It's a very nice book. I hope you all will read it. Tack så mycket för oss.